Hi, everyone. We are at the Remember High School panel because at least all of us here remember high school. I'm going to introduce the author, and then the authors are going to tell you a little bit about their book. And if you have it, hold it up. I always forget that part. So I'm going to go in the order that I see you guys kind of on my screen. So first, we have F.C. Do you want to show us your book and tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm FCE. I am the author of the Jeannie Lo series, which starts with the Epic Crush of Jeannie Lo, and its sequel, The Iron Will of Jeannie Lo. It is a contemporary fantasy set in the San Francisco Bay Area that incorporates elements of the legend of Sun Wukong, the Monkey King. I am also the author of Avatar: The Last Airbender: The Rise of Kyoshi, which is a tie-in with the popular Nickelodeon series.
Thank you so much. And how about Samuel Miller?
Hi, I'm Sam Miller. I am coming to you live from Studio City, California. I have my book right up above my head on that side. It's called Redemption Prep. It's a boarding school mystery. Starts out as a search for a missing girl, becomes a much larger, weirder, twistier universe mystery. It just came out last week, and that's me, Sam. I'm very excited to be here.
Thank you so much. And how about Leah Johnson?
Hey y'all, I'm coming to you from my parents' house in Indianapolis, Indiana. My book is called You Should See Me in a Crown. Okay, there we go. It's about a girl named Liz Leidy whose biggest dream is to get out of her small white Midwestern hometown and go to her dream school. But when her financial aid falls through, she has to run for prom queen in order to win the scholarship that's attached. But that's terrible for a wallflower like Wiz, and it doesn't help that along the way she starts to fall for her competition.
And now we have Abigail Hing Wen. I love your background. Has your book?
Yeah, so here's my book. Can you see it? It's Love Boat Taipei. It's about a girl named Ever Wong whose strict parents send her from Ohio to Taiwan for the summer to learn language and culture. But what she finds instead is this crazy summer free-for-all. And it's actually based on a real program in Taiwan that I attended as a teenager myself. The big exciting news that we just announced recently is that it's been optioned for film by the producers of To All the Boys I've Loved Before. So we're working on that now, and it's super exciting.
Ooh, I can't wait to see it. Yeah. And we also have Julie Buxbaum.
Hi, I'm Julie Buxbaum. I'm the author of Tell Me Three Things, What to Say Next, Hope and Other Punchlines. And most recently, Admission, which is about Chloe Berenger, who seems to have it all. She just got into the college of her dreams. The boy she's had a crush on since middle school just asked her to prom, and her B-list mom actress is on the way to the B+ list. Until one day, the FBI comes knocking, and it turns out her mom is caught in a nationwide college admission scandal. And it's about what it means to be complicit and sort of examining your own privilege. Oh, and here's the book.
Nice. Sorry, you guys. I'm on my son's computer. Rachel Lynn Solomon.
Hi, I am coming to you all from Seattle, and I am the author of You'll Miss Me When I'm Gone, Our Year of Maybe, and coming out in July, Today, Tonight, Tomorrow. And this one is my first romantic comedy, and it is about rival overachievers who have been at each other's throats for the past 4 years of high school. And then on the last day of senior year, over the course of 24 hours, their relationship completely changes, and they realize they may actually be in love with each other.
Nice. And I'm Kami Garcia. I am the shorter half of Beautiful Creatures, and more recently, Teen Titans Raven. The sequel Beast Boy comes out in September. Okay, so this is a little pressure, and you can totally lie if I'm embarrassing you, but I want to know a little bit about what you guys were like in high school. So who wants to go first? We're just discussing, it's kind of hard, everyone in the audience, to like figure out when it's your turn. Leah, why don't you start? What were you like in high school? How, yeah, see, if you guys don't jump in, that's what I'm gonna do and pick you. All right.
Yeah, okay, well, I'm okay with diving straight in. So I was voted class clown in high school. Somebody asked me in an interview recently, like, oh, were you prom queen? Girl, no, I was not. I was very goofy, and I was in show choir, so I was also one of those kids who was like obnoxiously singing down the hallway every day. And you could pretty much, that's the framework you need to figure out who I was in high school. I was very goofy and borderline obnoxious about show tunes.
Nice. Abigail, what about you?
So I was really big into musicals as well. I sang and danced with our show choir, the dance squad, similar to my character Ever. But I was also like kind of shy and, like I could be on stage, but I couldn't hang out and talk to boys and all that stuff. But I grew up one of the rare Asian Americans in Ohio at the time. So that was a big part of my upbringing as well.
How about you, Samuel?
Well, I didn't realize show choir was such a universal thing. I kind of thought that was one of those things that basically just existed at my high school, and like my choir teacher had invented it to try to trick me into dancing in front of people. But yeah, I did that too. I'm sure, as with everywhere else, I'm sure I was on the debate team, which is where most of the cool, sexy kids ended up. Sure, that's universal. I was sort of like you know how in a lot of stories, YA stories about high school, there's always sort of like the slightly antagonizing character who's like overachieving to the point and like feels like they need to like put it in everybody else's face. That was me. I was like the bad guy character. I ended up when I was in my junior year of high school, all of that pivoted because I discovered like emo music and started wearing my sister's jeans to school and became like a full-on emo kid, kind of foregoing everything else, show choir, all the rest of it. And that's the person that I became.
I want to know, I'm old, you guys. Like, will someone, just in case people don't know, tell me what show choir is? Does that just mean you're in like the chorus of the musical?
Oh, it's totally a thing.
No.
It's like,
Abigail, you grew up in the Midwest, so like you would understand the type of show choir that we do out here in specific probably. But like, imagine the show Glee and like just, I don't know, shift it slightly to the right, like make it less obnoxious, I guess. I don't know how to describe it. It's kind of, it's like, yeah, being in the chorus, but not, I don't know.
That's a good way of putting it. It's like the chorus, except you're the main show. Right. So it's like 25, 26 students, paired couples, and you choreograph these dance routines and sing at the same time.
Dance moves that are like slightly cornier than your typical dance moves.
Flash
so like
hands,
instead of like a lot of like punching and sliding and stuff like that.
Oh, I like it. It sounds totally great.
Right. Okay, we could turn this panel into a show choir panel.
It must have been a Midwest thing because I'm from South Dakota.
Okay.
I'm also like older than you guys. My school probably hadn't like caught on to that yet. We had like, drill team, and that was kind of the closest thing to like everyone dancing, but you didn't sing at the same time, so it wasn't quite as cool. Rachel, how about you? What were you like in high school?
Well, I am really sad we didn't have a show choir, but I was like the stereotypical overachieving AP kid who moonlighted as a punk rocker. I was in an all-girl band, and we like sang, I sang and wrote songs. They were all about like the guy I was obsessed with, and we played local shows. And then I would go home and do homework and go to AP classes. Yeah, so a little bit of a dichotomy there.
What was the band's name?
Oh, it's too embarrassing. I can't.
Oh, come on.
Now you have to.
This is the high school panel.
It was called Sicily Crypt, and thank God there was no Twitter or anything back then, because we still exist on MySpace, but barely. It is. I'm so glad it's been lost.
I still think that sounds pretty cool. FC, how about you? What were you like in high school?
I remember not like flip-flopping everywhere with like intellectual pursuits and not really settling down into any one of them, and then also like playing a lot of sports I'm not physically equipped for, like for whatever reason, like starting like trying to play hockey even though I'm not big, and like doing track even though I'm really slow. So yeah, it was a period of like learning about myself.
That's cool though, because you weren't scared to try things.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not exactly sure why I was that stubborn back then. Less so these days.
Julie, how about you?
So show choir would have been like my worst nightmare in high school. Like the thought of anyone looking at me on a stage and singing and dancing would have been the stuff of like literal nightmares. And probably in my nightmares I'd be pantless, but still the idea of like
so sort of like now, right?
Yeah, exactly. We weren't supposed to tell people I'm not wearing pants.
Sorry.
Yeah, I was a big nerd. I was really awkward. Boys terrified me. Conversation in general terrified me. I mean, I was a good student, so I was super academic and nerdy. I was in no way cool. I just wore really giant pants and really tall Doc Martens and fisherman sweaters. I don't know if you guys remember those big fisherman
cool.
sweaters on your knees. But other than that, I was also painfully earnest, which I look back on and I'm a little like, I want to sort of protect my sort of earnest heart back then. But.
I like that. I like that though. So
It's funny that you say it.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, it's funny that you say that was like not a cool look then, because it sounds absolutely like a hype beast now.
For sure.
What you just described is
people in
very
Bushwick dress
trendy.
like that.
Very
I think
trendy
it was
look.
probably about like 4 years too late. Like 4 years earlier it would have been really cool, but then I was at the tail end when everyone had already done it.
I feel like we never see ourselves as cool though, either, too. Like not looking back. So this is kind of my favorite question, especially to YA authors, is, you know, how much of your high school experience did you draw on when writing your book? You don't have to say, you know, if it's true stories, but like, you know, how much, because I find that like YA authors seem to remember high school very vividly compared to other people.
So in You Should See Me in a Crown, like even the girl on the cover kind of looks like how I looked in high school, like skinny, big hair, painfully earnest also. Julie, I think when I was in high school, I know I'm from a rural adjacent town, and so it has small town energy out here, extreme small town vibes. And I remember like my biggest dream was like, all right, one day I'm gonna move out of here and I'm gonna get to Chicago, which in Indianapolis is the big city. And so all of that is written all over You Should See Me in a Crown, this sense that like I'm an outsider who doesn't necessarily fit in the community that I'm growing up in. And part of that outsideness is the fact that I'm Black and I don't quite have the language to describe why my Blackness is not being received with care when I leave my house. And so like all of those elements are weaving their way into Liz's high school experience as well.
I definitely drew on my high school experience. So my girl Ever is, one of the few Asian American girls in her school, and she doesn't want to be Asian. She's she hates it. There's this one other Asian kid that's been in her grade, and everyone says, "Oh, why don't you date him?" And I think she is running away from her culture in a lot of ways. So for her to get shipped off to Taiwan is kind of a nightmare. But what she does find is that she's able to make the culture her own. And similarly, her journey of trying to figure out what does it mean to pursue her dreams in dancing, but still honor her, her parents who are much more traditional views of what her career and her life should look like. That's very much my journey as well.
Yeah, I think that I am putting pieces of myself into each book that I write. So you sort of write your first book and you're like, did I put all of my trauma in one book? And you're like, nope, I still have plenty of terrible experiences to draw from. And so I think for this book in particular, and most of mine, but especially this one, because it all takes place in 24 hours on the last day of senior year, there is a lot of nostalgia and a lot of like yearning and fear for the future. And I was just like so consumed by those emotions at that point. Like I was just I internalized everything, and I have journals to prove just how terrified I was, and I think how terrified so many of us were. So yeah, just really tapping into those like bittersweet feelings of like leaving high school behind and leaving all these familiar things, while at the same time being excited about the future, but also uncertain about what it holds. So it's really, I think, it tapping into the feelings that I had at that time, and then just putting pieces of like my overachiever self into certain books. And I guess the punk rock, I don't know, I have yet to write that book. We'll see.
I want that book.
Yeah, one day.
I feel like it's the same for me, Rachel. I don't have so many details of where I went to high school in any of my books. Admission and Tell Me Three Things are set at the same high school, and it's a fancy pants LA prep school. And I went to a New York State suburban public school. So I do not have any experience with that actual kind of school. But the feelings of being a teenager, for whatever reason, have incredibly stuck to me. And I don't find it hard to go back and dip into them so much. If you ask me like how a locker combination works, I have no idea. And I don't remember the cafeteria, but I remember the feeling of trying to find a table in the cafeteria. And I think that's the stuff that's the stuff that's fun to dip into as a YA writer. I think that's why we do it, for the first, that first love, first loss, all that stuff.
I remember, I didn't put so much of the experiences that I had growing up, because I went to high school in New Jersey, but I remember writing more, looking at it from, high school and the education system, from what I was observing from, with my family in the Bay Area, where I spent the majority of my adulthood, and trying to capture what it was, the weird and unique culture there of like hyper competitiveness that happens, that sort of pressure cooker environment. The school there that I tried to portray was actually majority Asian, because in towns in the Bay Area you get that. So trying to capture like a very hyper specific type of high school experience was part of my goal in trying to write my book.
I want to rewind really quickly to what Julie said about like being able to capture sensations, like in the way that other people maybe can capture feelings. I maybe can't tell you exactly like the days that my friends and I like left school and ran across the street to Taco Bell and like, what conversations we had there, but I could definitely capture the feeling of what it felt like to like sit in those rooms with them and like know that for however long I was together with my friends, I was in a space where somebody knew me and they saw me and they got me. And like, those are the things that I think are most magical about like imbuing into YA, is like capturing the heart of those feelings.
Yeah. I also think at that age, I gave myself permission to like feel those things a lot more sort of strongly or urgently, and like be a part of those things, and often reflect on how much easier it was for me to just be like, oh yeah, I'm in love with this person, and that is a fact and it's not going to change. Or like, I absolutely do not mess with that person. I hate that person. And I guess now maybe I challenge my assumptions more, but then I was a lot better at like doing it. So that's, I think, the fun part of, as you said, imbuing into the genre, is that I prefer characters that behave that way. I wish I could fall in love as easily.
Leah's comment just actually made me think about something. There's a lot of teens like throughout the country, even when they're not stuck at home, who really find solace in books, who don't have a lot of friends, who are on their own, who don't fit in, and they like their escape, and their friends are the characters in the book and on the page. Do you think about that when you're writing like about that kid?
I didn't, that was very much me. My best friends were all the characters in books. I wanted to live in Laura Ingalls' world. I read a ton of fantasy novels, and I just wanted to go escape through these portals. And I didn't really think about it when I wrote my novel, but I've heard that since. Like, so when I hear from readers, they tell me like, oh, they feel like these characters, they know them, that they're friends with them, they relate to them, they are going through things that they're going through. And that's been so rewarding, because I remember how much it meant to me.
I think maybe one of the best ways to reach out to readers like you're describing is to kind of like open up and be vulnerable first, and share parts of yourself, and then once a reader sees that you're doing that and being that level of honest within your writing, they will feel like you're talking to them.
Yeah, I think. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. I just said absolutely.
Yeah, in my experience, so I did have friends in high school, but they were not the kind of like lifelong friends that I thought I was going to make, that I saw in all these movies and TV shows. Like, I was very much not my whole self in high school at all. Like, I hid my true interests, my true emotions, and I'm not in touch with anyone in high school, even though I live 20 minutes away. So I think a lot of what I'm trying to do in my books, and with this one in particular, because the main character wants to write romance novels, which is something that she hides from everyone because there is such a stigma attached to it, unfortunately, still today. And just this idea of like hiding who you really are to be more acceptable and more palatable to a group of people, even if that's your friends, your parents, your love interest. That was so much of my experience. And I think I am writing in a way to like undo not undo who I was, but like undo and like crack into that honesty and authenticity, and show this like comfortable space where people can be like, this is the thing you love, this is who you are, and like, that's wonderful.
Yeah, I think I 100% agree with what Rachel is talking about. Last year at Well Read Black Girl Festival, Elizabeth Acevedo was talking about like what she thinks about when she's crafting her characters. And she was saying like, how can I write these girls so that when a Black girl comes to the page and reads this character, they know that I've written this character with so much love that I love them as an extension of that. And so I think about that every time I sit down to write, like, how can I write a queer Black girl character that shows you, queer Black girl who's at home reading and maybe doesn't feel welcome in her community, that I love you and I see you. And so like, that's the most important thing, I think, probably when I'm working on character.
Oh my God. The former teacher in me, you guys are killing me.
I feel like most of us YA writers write the book that we wish we had when we were teens, the book that will make us feel less alone.
That's so true.
And I don't know if we do it consciously. I know I don't do it consciously, but after the book is done, I look back and realize there was some fundamental question I've always had in the back of my head that I needed to work through in the book I'm writing. And almost always it's to make former teenage me feel less afraid and less alone and more special too.
So I'm going to give you a minute to think about this question because you don't have to answer it. It's optional. But I participated a long time ago in, it was an online kind of blog post. It was called Dear Teen Me. And it was something, we were supposed to write a letter to ourselves as a teen. So for those people who are comfortable, I want you to just think about if there was like one piece of advice you could give teen you, like what would that be? Because it seems like, between Julie and Leah, you're talking about things like acceptance and, wanting someone to feel like they have other people, they have a tribe. So think about like what advice you would give your teen self. Do you have an answer already? I feel like you're ahead of the curve.
Sorry, you're looking at me?
I said, were you thinking of something? I said, I felt like you were ahead of the curve.
Oh, what was sorry, I don't know what I was doing.
I was just saying, think of a piece of advice you would give yourself as a teen. And it could be, it could literally be like, you know what, you really need to think about like what kind of sports you're trying out for because there's a lot of injury awaiting you. But
I can think of
that for a minute, hold that.
Sure.
And then the other thing is, and this is kind of the teacher part of me, like, since you're writing for teens and kids who are obviously like very impressionable, like how much responsibility do you feel? Like Leah was talking about, the idea, like she was saying how she is thinking about that reader while she's writing. She's trying to picture them in her mind. Like how much responsibility do you feel to kind of crack open and be authentic and like tell a real story?
I can tackle the question for, you can probably allude from my answers. I was a really lonely teen, the lonely kid. And I answered a similar question recently. That's why I can jump on it now. And the question was like, what would you, if you could go back in time and tell your teen self something, what would it be? And I think I would talk to her about where I am now. Like, have hope, like you will find people that you connect with. Like my husband went on the boat also, and we're married now. Like we weren't there the same summer, but we connected us, and like I didn't know he was coming. And then this book, right? There's been a whole community built around the story, and I didn't know that I would have all those things. Like I was just this lonely kid who had my books and my dancing, and to think like, okay, like the future like is long, and there's many paths that your life can take, and there are good things coming. So hang in there.
Love that.
I love that. I think for me, the main thing that I would say to my teen self is that it's okay to want things. I just like didn't want to take up, I'm 4'10", so I don't take up that much space anyway, but I was just so focused on making myself even smaller, physically and metaphorically. I just assumed that the friends I had were the friends that I deserved, and I did not seek out or like request better treatment. I assumed I was always the person who was going to be subservient and just obey whatever people told me to do in whatever relationship that I had. And just, so that notion of like, it's okay to want and like experience desire, whatever those desires happen to be in, any number of relationships. And with regard to responsibility, I love that question because I really feel when you're writing for children, for teens. Like, I have yet to read, I've maybe only read one YA novel ever that has not had a hopeful ending. And I think it's one thing to not be didactic or preachy, but I really think we owe it to our teen readers to show that hope. I think Abigail was mentioning that sense of hope. I mean, I think that's why a lot of us as adults return to YA too, because you are like guaranteed that at the end.
I think to answer the question about responsibility in writing for young people, one of the reasons why it's so crucial that we diversify the canon that children are taught in schools is because the job of books is to teach us how to be more human and more empathetic, right? And so like if a kid is coming to a book and they never see themselves, or they never see the character that is like them receive a happy ending, or they're told that stories about them are taking over and taking up too much space, those things show teens like how they are to move through the world, right? And so like in the work always, I think there is a responsibility to us to show people that like we can be better, and you can feel the things that you want to feel, and you deserve to feel them wholly and without shame. And so I think that's the responsibility that I'm always thinking about, is like, how can I tell this child or this young person or whoever who's coming to the book that like, you are everything that you are, and you deserve to be all of those things if that's what you want to be. And so that's what I would tell Leah, teen Leah too. Also, I would tell her, you don't have to say that you love that boy just because that boy loves you. One day you'll figure out why you don't feel that way for him. Maybe not now, but later.
Yeah. Also, that maintaining and committing to that level of responsibility, it also just makes you, a better writer and better at your job, because to put yourself in the head of your reader and try to understand, what feelings you're evoking in them and what you're communicating to them. There's a high degree of responsibility you have as somebody writing for teens, but also too, you can imagine a writer saying like, yeah, I don't worry about what my writer feels or thinks when they're reading my stuff. Like it would be weird. It just makes you a practice and better writer to treat your audience with that level of respect.
I think one of the things I think we as a society forget is that adult problems aren't reserved just for adults, that teens experience real life too. I lost my mom in high school, and I know that there are tons of teens everywhere who are facing really terrible things: abusive parents, loss of parents, divorce, food insecurity. I mean, there's a very, very long list of traumatic things that could happen to kids in high school. And I think the thing I would tell my teen self, and what I tell teens all the time, is a lot of what happens to you is not okay. It's just not. And I'm not going to pretend like it is. But you will be okay. And I wish someone had sat 14-year-old me down, who thought when my mom died it was the end of my life too, and said, no, there's nothing okay about this, and actually will never be okay. But you 100% absolutely will. And you'll go on to shine. And I think it's super important for teens to know. To go back to your point, Rachel, about hope.
Is anyone else like on the verge of crying?
Yeah, I'm like, whoa, this made a real emotional turn. Wow.
Down, I'm so sorry.
No, everyone's saying such great things.
Yeah, I think if I could talk to myself, this sort of is in line with a lot of what I'd actually would prefer that you guys go back and talk to 16-year-old Sam, because all that shit would be amazing, or stuff would be amazing for him. But just sort of in line with all of that, I would just let him know that like your people will find you. Like I grew up in a tiny little town. I did a lot of like trying to like fold myself to like present a certain type of way, a certain type of masculine, to sort of like attract the friends that I thought were going to be the friends that I would need. And that is not true. The world doesn't really work like that. You be who you are and the people find you. I also would tell him not to quit the saxophone, because when those people do find you, you'll want to be able to play the saxophone for them.
Okay, I'm gonna see if I can see the questions that people have. Oh my gosh, I can. A lot of people do want to know this. I feel it like at Y'all West and Y'all Fest, we attract a lot of hopeful writers. What advice would you give teens that want to write? This reader wants to know, like, what advice would you give a teen writer?
Go for it.
You want to go first, Abigail?
Go ahead,
Sorry.
Julie. No, go ahead, Julie.
Okay. I have 2 pieces of advice. I think the first one is sit your butt down in a chair and write. That's the fundamental thing. To be a writer, you just have to write. And you're no more a writer the day after you get your publishing contract than you are the day before. The only thing that makes someone a writer is writing. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing I think that is incredibly important is to read as widely and wildly as you can. And when you start to read more as a writer and not as a reader. So if something is working for you really well and the prose is singing, ask yourself why. If you love a character and you feel immensely engrossed, why do you feel that way? If a book isn't working for you, take a step back and figure that out also. It's a whole different kind of reading that is done as a writer. But once you master that, every book you read is an education to become a better writer.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Incredible advice. I would add to just write what only you can write. I think for sure my early stories were all derivative fantasy based on like the books that I'd read. And I really never imagined that a book like mine could be published because I never saw anything like it growing up. Like these stories that were inside my home were never reflected in any of the texts that I read. And so I would urge you to just, dig deep into your own life and your own psyche and your family and whatever else you're experiencing, your imagination, and just really write what only you can write.
And just to add one more brief thing, that definitely echoing what both of you said, but along with writing, I would also say write terribly. Give yourself the permission to write things that aren't perfect the first go around. Like that would have just saved me so much grief if I had not labored over every single word. Writing one terrible draft after another is the only thing that gets you to a better draft.
You can also, on that note, you can learn, it's a good thing to learn how to react well and grow from criticism and other people's reactions to that work. Because the thing is, like, once you get into, the stage of what the writing that the folks on this panel are doing, all you get is criticism and rejection too, and so it's trying to figuring out how to understand what what a reader or reactor is saying, and then figuring out how to use that to improve yourself will prepare you for the journey to come.
Yeah, my only other advice is I always tell people, which I don't think I really realized when I started writing either, is that like the book you see in the library or the bookstore, that version of the book looks nothing like what the author wrote in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's why like you're not going to do a great job the first time. It's really hard. Okay, I'm trying to do this again. Okay, I did that one.
And you can bankrupt yourself really quickly by comparing your first draft to that finished product.
Totally.
It's a very quick way to psych yourself out.
Oh, this is a great one. Does anyone have a book that they've read recently, and it doesn't have to be your genre, but like a book you really loved that you would recommend? It can be, any book. It doesn't have to be like it's coming out imminently. Could even be a reread. Oh,
They're There by Tommy Orange. I just read it and I've had to read it twice since because it's so unbelievable. It rocked me so much.
So I'm going to say Late to the Party by Kelly Quinlan. You can't see it because my background is messing up my raggedy green screen, but so smart, so funny, so queer. And it just came out last week, so I recommend everybody go get it.
I just read my friend Stacey Lee's new book, which isn't coming out for a while, on the Titanic. So I'm super excited. She writes historical Asian American fiction.
you're like teasing us with the book we can't read.
It's coming out though. It'll be out. Read her other books in the meantime.
I was like sneakily pulling up. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I was going to say I was sneakily pulling up my Goodreads because I honestly have no memory past the book I'm currently reading. But one thing that I read early and is not out until this fall is I Think I Love You by Oriane de Sombre. And it is a queer, Much Ado About Nothing retelling. And it is absolutely adorable. The voice is so fun. It feels like so authentically teen in a way that a lot of contemporary books kind of struggle to do, but don't quite get there. And yeah, I Think I Love You. Recommend it so highly.
I am only just starting A Princess in Theory by Alyssa Cole, and
So
enjoying it a lot.
Awesome. Okay, do we do that? I think we have time. Julie, do you have one? I think we have time for one more question. I'm going to try to find it.
I don't have one. Weirdly, I don't know if anyone else is having this right now, but I'm having a lot of trouble reading during the pandemic.
I've heard that from a lot of people.
Which is
the
weird.
concentration.
Yeah, and weirdly, I mean, reading has always been my escape. It's the one thing where I know it's always waiting for me and can always support me. And lately, it's sort of falling short for me. I've been reading a lot of romance, which has helped, but I'm way slower, and I can't remember any books. Like my brain doesn't.
I've heard that from several people too. Oh, this is a great question. Okay, so Jessica wants to know, what's your favorite book character from your high school years? Like a character from a book that you loved? Anyone? I'll tell you from elementary school, mine was Pippi Longstocking because I wanted to live without my parents with a horse and a monkey in my house.
I love the main character in The Secret Garden, whose name, for whatever reason, is not here right now. But it's a book about healing in the wake of loss, and she's incredibly disagreeable, and they even describe her as ugly in the beginning. I mean, the writer is so mean to who this little girl is to start out with, and it's this amazing journey where she comes into herself and blossoms. And so whatever her name is, I picked that one.
I love Hermione Granger. She's my girl. Like, even though she's super annoying in the beginning because she's always raising her hand for all the answers, like she's just brilliant. And I think my friends and I were saying she should have been, like book 4 should have been Hermione Granger and the Goblet of Fire.
Anyone else?
Yeah.
I was like, it feels like Sam was getting ready to go. So I was like, you gonna take it?
Yeah, Christopher in The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime, and Oscar in Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close, both younger kids who meant a lot to me.
I'm gonna go with Remy Starr from This Lullaby by Sarah Dessen. She was so cool to me and edgy, and she like snuck out with her friends and she smoked, and she was like so in control of her own body. Don't smoke, kids, it's bad for you. But at the time I was like, ooh, I can't wait to be cool like that. So did I ever grow into Remy Starr? No, I didn't, but
you look pretty cool to me.
Thank you so much, Kami. I needed to hear that.
Okay, let's see. I think we have time for one more, and then that's it. If I can find one quickly. What did you dread about high school? I feel like someone said the cafeteria. I'm thinking everything. Is there anything particularly that was like a source of a lot of kind of anxiety?
God, anything where you had to like pick somewhere to sit. So yeah, I mean, cafeteria, it just, even today, I feel like I have stress dreams about it.
I remember
school
dreading.
Formals. School formals, like, are you gonna get asked? Like back then, girls didn't ask as much. So, although I ended up asking my prom date.
Nice.
I think anything that involved talking to other people freaked me out in high school.
Yeah. I remember
being.
No, please go ahead.
I remember being really stressed out about grades all the time. Like, and mind you, I had like a 4.2 at some point. Like, I wasn't a bad student, but I just remember feeling constantly like, oh my God, this isn't enough. This isn't going to get me into Northwestern. This isn't going to get me into Columbia. This isn't going to get me. And honestly, if I could tell high school be anything, girl, them grades don't matter. You gonna be a writer anyway, and nobody asks for your transcript when they give you a book deal. Okay, so don't worry about it.
Yes.
Wait, they didn't ask for your transcript?
No, I thought that was a little weird, but I don't know.
Okay, guys, I have someone who's magically in charge of this is saying we're out of time. So it looks like after all the panels, they're posting the links to everyone's books, and you can order them all signed if you want one. We're all signing book plates, and thank you so much for coming.